When you hear the word airship, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably a fiery disaster, right? This relic of a bygone era that just didn't work out. But what if I told you that whole perception is, well, wrong? Because right now, companies are pouring billions of dollars into this, betting that airships are about to make a huge comeback. So what do they know that we don't?
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we have to talk about that fiery reputation. Then, we'll uncover this huge, missing piece in global shipping. We'll see how airships plan to become the trucks of the sky, and why for them, bigger is actually way better. After that, we'll get into the really hard problems they have to solve. And finally, we'll see where this tech is already getting off the ground.
You just can't talk about airships without addressing the giant, blimp-shaped elephant in the room, the Hindenburg. I mean, this thing was filled with an incredible 200 million liters of super flammable hydrogen. Its crash back in 1937 was one of the first big disasters ever caught on film, and that image, it's just burned into our collective memory.
But here's something that might surprise you. Despite how horrific it looked, more than 2/3 of the people on board actually made it out alive. But that didn't really matter. It was the spectacle of it all, that horrifying image that sealed the deal. It branded airships as these dangerous floating bombs, and that reputation is stuck for over 80 years.
So that leaves us with a really important question. If they have this reputation for being big, slow, and dangerous, why on earth would anyone be trying to bring them back? Well, the answer has absolutely nothing to do with carrying people. It's all about carrying stuff. To really get why airships make a lot of sense today, we have to take a look at how we move things around the planet. Because right now, there's this massive, kind of overlooked gap in global shipping.
Think about it like this. If you're shipping something inside a country, say the US, you've got a whole menu of options. You've got planes, which are super fast but expensive. You've got ships, which are dirt cheap but slow. Rail is somewhere in between. But trucks hit that Goldilocks just right spot. They're fast enough and cheap enough, and that's why they move most of the freight.
But the second you look at the international market, that perfect middle option just vanishes. You're left with two extremes: insanely fast and expensive planes, or incredibly slow and cheap container ships. There is no truck. And this missing middle is a huge opportunity, a market gap that some people think is worth hundreds of billions of dollars.
So how in the world do you fill a gap that massive? Well, this is precisely where the new generation of cargo airships makes its grand entrance. The big vision here is to create the trucks of the sky, an option that's way faster than a ship, but a whole lot cheaper than a plane. It's all about hitting that perfect middle ground for a gigantic slice of the global shipping market. And the advantages are really compelling. I mean, they could cross an ocean in about a week, not a month. They'd cost just a fraction of what air freight costs, and they could carry truly enormous loads. But here's the real killer feature. They need zero infrastructure. No ports, no runways, nothing. They can land pretty much anywhere that has a flat surface, whether it's a desert or a frozen lake.
And of course, in the 21st century, there's one selling point that's maybe bigger than all the others: sustainability. A plane has to burn a crazy amount of fuel just to fight gravity and stay in the air. An airship? It gets its lift from buoyancy, basically for free. This means modern designs could cut carbon emissions by up to 90% compared to a cargo plane. That's huge.
But here's the thing. For the economics to really, truly work, these airships need to be absolutely colossal. And lucky for them, there's this simple and really elegant law of physics that makes being bigger a massive advantage.
It's called the cubed squared law. And here's the key idea in simple terms. An airship's lift, its power to float, comes from its volume. And volume grows by the cube of its size. But drag, the air resistance holding it back, comes from its surface area, which only grows by the square of its size. So what does that mean? It means as you make an airship bigger, its lifting power grows way faster than its drag.
Let's put that into practice. Let's say you double an airship's size. Its drag goes up by 4 times, but its lifting power, that goes up by a factor of 8. You literally double your efficiency just by making it bigger. For an airship, bigger isn't just better, it's everything.
Okay, so the physics works, the economic case seems like a slam dunk, so why aren't our skies already full of these giant cargo haulers? Well, it's because the engineering challenges are just as massive as the airships themselves.
And the list of hurdles, it's immense. Just handling bad weather is a huge one. These things are basically giant sails. You need enormous hangars to build and store them. The process for getting them certified as aircraft is totally new territory, and you have to build a structure that's somehow both incredibly strong and impossibly light.
But the single biggest potential showstopper is called the load exchange. Just imagine this. You land, and you drop off 500 tons of cargo. All of a sudden, you're 500 tons lighter. The airship wants to just shoot into the sky like a cork popping out of a bottle. Now, companies are working on ways to solve this, like compressing the gas or taking on water as ballast, but if you can't solve this problem perfectly, large-scale cargo airships are, as one expert put it, completely dead in the water.
And this all brings us back to that old debate. What do you fill it with? On one hand, you've got helium. It's perfectly safe, totally inert, but it's also a finite resource, it's expensive, and it gives you less lift. On the other hand, there's hydrogen. It's cheap, it's everywhere, and it's powerful, but it carries that Hindenburg legacy. The tough reality is, if you imagine a future with thousands of these things flying around, hydrogen is really the only gas that makes economic sense.
But despite all of these massive challenges, the airship revolution might already be starting. Several companies are making real progress, but they aren't going after that mass cargo market. Well, not yet anyway.
Instead, the strategy is to start small. Companies are targeting these high-margin, niche markets where airships offer a solution that nothing else can. Think about things like ultra-luxury tourism, delivering emergency aid right into a disaster zone, or flying massive wind turbine blades directly to a remote construction site.
The pioneers in this space are incredibly optimistic. They truly believe that by proving the technology in these smaller, more focused markets first, they're paving the way for a much bigger revolution in lighter-than-air flight down the road.
So, this is where we're left. Are these niche projects the crucial stepping stones that will finally launch the era of the cargo airship and fill that huge gap in global shipping? Or will the immense challenges of scaling up mean that the trucks of the sky remain just a beautiful dream on the horizon? The next decade is probably going to give us our answer.